welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be exploring the end of life for SAP Business Planning and Consolidation,
Oh, yeah.
or as most folks know it,
BPC.
BPC. We've got some really great source material for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We've got a document from SAP Insider by Dr. Marco Sisfantes-Monge.
Yeah.
We've got additional thoughts from Dr. Sisfantes-Monge himself from a seminar that he gave,
Wow.
and some Gartner analysis on SAP S/4HANA adoption.
Interesting.
So this transition from BPC to, well, we'll get into what the options are, is a really big deal for a lot of companies.
Yeah.
And Dr. Sisfantes-Monge even has some pretty dramatic stories about it. So what are your initial thoughts on this? What are you kind of hoping to learn today?
Well, I think it's a really pivotal moment for companies who have relied on BPC for so many years.
Right.
You know, they've really built their financial planning consolidation processes around this system. And now they're being faced with this major decision,
Yes.
what do they do next?
Right. And Dr. Sisfantes-Monge actually describes the relationship between companies and BPC as a love story.
Oh, wow.
He talks about this, long and happy partnership they've had,
Okay.
which I guess makes this whole situation even more dramatic.
Yeah, like a breakup.
Yeah, like a really bad breakup.
And SAP isn't really softening the blow at all either. They're completely ending all their investment in BPC.
Wow.
No more upgrades, no new versions, no more patches.
So that's pretty final.
Yeah,
So if a company's still running BPC, it sounds like this is a pretty serious wake-up call.
it is.
But why is this happening now?
Well, the BTC sunset is actually part of a larger shift
Okay.
in the entire SAP ecosystem. Standard support for their legacy ERP system, SAP ECC, is ending in 2027.
Gotcha.
And then a lot of the related platforms like the BW data warehousing solutions that
Yeah.
often underpin BPC,
Right.
those are reaching their end of life too.
So it sounds like SAP is doing this massive overhaul, sunsetting these older systems and really pushing for newer technologies.
For sure.
So what does all of this mean for companies that are currently using BPC?
Well, if you're running BPC, there's a good chance that your whole SAP ecosystem is going to get a huge shakeup.
Oh, wow.
And this is where it gets even more complicated.
Okay.
So Dr. Sisfantes-Monge, he's adamant that there is no straightforward upgrade path from BPC to any current SAP product.
Wait, really? No easy migration path?
No.
So companies can't just, click a button and switch over?
Nope. It's a completely new implementation.
Oh, wow.
Starting fresh.
Okay.
Think of it like moving to a new house
Mhm.
instead of just redecorating.
Gotcha.
And for companies that have spent, years customizing BPC to fit their needs,
Yeah.
this is a really daunting task.
That's a big curveball.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, are there any companies out there that are still kind of clinging to that upgrade idea?
It's not as uncommon as you might think. Yeah. In his seminar, Dr. Sisfantes-Monge shares this anecdote about a company in Dubai that was running a very customized BPC system on a super outdated BW platform.
Okay.
They were having all these performance issues,
Mhm.
and it turns out they hadn't upgraded their BW system in over 4 years.
4 years, that's a long time to go without updating some pretty mission-critical systems.
Yeah, it is.
It's like skipping your yearly checkups at the doctor for a decade.
Yeah,
You might feel okay on the surface, but who knows what's going on underneath.
exactly.
So what happened with this company?
Well, let's just say it wasn't pretty.
Okay.
The IT manager was totally resistant to doing upgrades,
Oh, no.
and it turned into a whole standoff.
Wow.
But we'll get back to that story a little bit later because it really highlights the importance of proactive system maintenance
Okay.
and upgrades.
So I'm definitely curious to hear more about this Dubai debacle.
Yeah.
But first, I think we should get to what everyone's really wondering.
Mm-hmm.
What are the options?
Yes.
If you can't just upgrade BPC, what do you actually do?
Right.
What does the landscape of financial planning and consolidation even look like now?
So on the planning side, there's a couple of main contenders. One is SAP Analytics Cloud, or SAC.
Okay.
It's cloud-based.
Mhm.
It's gaining a lot of traction
Okay.
because it's really flexible and easy to use.
Gotcha.
Another option is SAP Integrated Business Planning, or IBP.
Okay.
And this is designed specifically for supply chain planning.
Okay.
And it uses some really cool AI capabilities.
So SAC is kind of more general planning, and then IBP is very specialized
Right.
for supply chain.
Exactly.
Can you elaborate a little more on those AI capabilities in IBP? What does that actually mean practically speaking?
Sure. So IBP uses AI to analyze historical data,
Mm-hmm.
predict future demand, and optimize inventory levels.
Okay.
So, for example, it can help companies anticipate supply chain disruptions
Oh, that's cool.
or adjust production plans based on real-time market conditions.
So it's not just about like crunching numbers.
Right.
It's about using intelligence to make smarter decisions.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So that's planning. What about the consolidation side?
So for consolidation, the main replacement is SAP group reporting,
Okay.
but
Oh, there's it, but.
it requires an SAP S/4HANA database.
So is there no way around that? Like, do companies absolutely have to migrate to S/4HANA to use group reporting?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
There is a silver lining.
Okay.
You can have an S/4HANA system hosted in the cloud just for your consolidation needs,
Oh.
even if the rest of your business is still running on ECC.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's like a stepping stone.
Yes.
Companies can kind of get their feet wet with
Yes.
S/4HANA
Mm-hmm.
without diving in head first.
Exactly.
Does that tie into this hybrid model approach?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of companies are choosing to use these newer tools
Yeah.
like SAC or group reporting for certain functions,
Okay.
but keep BPC running for others.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's a phased transition, spreading out the costs and the risk.
Rare.
Could you give an example of what that might look like for a company?
Absolutely. Imagine like a retail company
Okay.
with really complex financial planning needs.
Hmm.
They could keep BPC for their core financial planning and budgeting,
Okay.
but then implement SAC for sales forecasting and reporting,
Gotcha.
and maybe down the road add IBP for supply chain optimization.
Okay.
Dr. Sisvantas Monge actually mentions a really complex example
Oh.
involving a hybrid environment combining BPC, group reporting, SAC,
Ah,
and several other SAP tools.
that's a lot.
Yeah, it shows how flexible this approach can be.
So we've got a few paths forward here.
Hmm?
Companies can kind of embrace the new stuff with SAC and group reporting,
Right.
maybe in a hybrid model?
Yeah.
Or is there like a third option where you just stick with BPC and hope for the best?
Well, Dr. Sisvantas Monge actually calls that going to the dark side.
Oh,
So,
sounds bad.
yeah, imagine clinging to this obsolete system with no support and no new features.
Right.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Especially when you consider just how fast technology changes these days.
Mm-hmm.
If you fall behind, it's really hard to catch up.
Yeah, and it brings us right back to our friends in Dubai.
Oh, yeah.
Their story is a perfect example of what can go wrong when you resist upgrades and hold on to these outdated systems.
Yeah.
But let's hold that thought,
Okay.
and we'll get back to their story in part 2.
I can't wait.
It's a good one.
I bet it is. Hashtag TTS, the deep dive episode 2024-11-23, part 2 of 3.
Okay, so picture this, right?
Okay.
You've got this bustling supermarket chain in Dubai.
Okay.
Shelves are stocked. Customers are everywhere.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes,
Oh.
their financial systems are a complete mess.
Oh, no.
Dr. Sisvantas Monge walks right into this scenario. He's been called in to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Their SAP BPC system, the one handling all their crucial planning and consolidation processes,
Right?
it's running incredibly slow,
Oh, jeez.
like at a snail's pace.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it is.
So what was the root of the problem?
Well, day one,
Okay.
Dr. Sisvantas Monge discovers that the IT manager
Wow.
hadn't approved any SAP BW upgrades
Oh, no.
for over 4 years.
4 years.
Yep.
That's a long time.
And remember,
Yeah.
BW is often the foundation for BPC.
Right.
So neglecting those upgrades,
Yeah.
that's a big problem.
It's like skipping your annual doctor's appointments for a decade.
Right.
You might feel fine, but
Yeah, you never know.
something could be lurking.
Exactly.
So it sounds like they had some pretty big technical issues.
They did, and it gets even more complicated.
Okay.
This company had also done a ton of customizations to the system.
Really?
Yeah, they opted to develop their own solutions
Wow.
instead of just using the standard BPC functionality.
It sounds like they were trying to reinvent the wheel a little bit.
Yeah, it was that classic, we're special, we need things our way approach. But as Dr. Sisvantas Monge points out,
Yeah.
this client wasn't really all that unique. They didn't really need to deviate so far
Yeah.
from that standard BPC functionality.
So all of these customizations, they made their systems super complex.
Yeah, really tangled.
And it sounds like that made upgrades and troubleshooting really hard.
It did. They basically built a house of cards.
Oh.
Yeah, and we all know what happens to those.
They come crashing down.
Exactly.
So what happened when Dr. Sisvantas Mon shared all of this with the company?
Well, he really strongly recommended that they upgrade the BW system.
Right.
But the IT manager,
Oh, no.
he refused.
He just flat out refused.
Yep. He was not willing to deal with all those object upgrades and server updates.
Wow, it sounds like he was really digging his heels in.
Yeah, like hoping the problem would just go away on its own.
You got it. Reminds me of this one time when, well, let's just say I've learned the hard way that ignoring problems doesn't usually work.
I think we all have.
Yeah. So what ultimately happened with this Dubai company?
Well, with the end of life looming for BW, BPC, and ECC, that IT manager and the whole organization, they're now forced to deal with it.
Yeah.
They can't keep kicking the can down the road anymore.
Right. They waited so long that the problem just became way bigger.
Exactly.
That is a cautionary tale if I've ever heard one.
It is.
Don't cling to these outdated systems.
Right.
And don't resist change.
Yeah.
I think there's a lesson here that goes beyond just technology, though.
What do you mean?
It's also about communication and planning.
For sure.
This company clearly didn't have a good IT strategy.
Right.
It seems like different departments weren't really talking to each other.
Yeah.
And they definitely weren't thinking ahead.
You're right. It highlights the importance of all those things.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the challenges and the potential pitfalls of this whole BPC transition.
For sure.
But let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the exciting stuff, the possibilities.
Yeah.
What does the future of financial planning and consolidation actually look like?
Right.
Like, what are the key trends and innovations?
So one big trend is this move towards specialization and integration.
Gotcha.
On the planning side, SAP is moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach that BPC was.
Right.
And they're offering these more tailored solutions, like SAC for general planning, IBP for supply chain planning.
Yeah.
They even have industry-specific solutions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So there's like BPC is becoming a whole family of tools.
Yes.
Each one focused on a specific area.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What about the integration aspect?
Oh, that's where it gets really cool.
Okay.
All these tools are designed to work together seamlessly.
Oh, wow.
So you can share data and collaborate more easily.
That's awesome.
Imagine your financial plans are linked directly to your supply chain forecasts, your sales projections, even your marketing campaigns.
That'd be amazing. Right. That level of integration would allow companies to make much better decisions.
It would.
And be way more efficient.
Exactly.
But I imagine this level of integration also creates new challenges, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like in terms of implementation and management?
Companies have to start thinking differently about their financial processes.
Okay.
They can't just think of them as isolated functions anymore. It's all connected.
So that's a big shift in mindset.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this move towards specialization and integration for planning.
Right.
What about for consolidation?
Well, SAP group reporting is definitely the front runner for that.
Okay.
And even though it requires S4 ANA, it offers some really big advantages over BPC.
Like what?
It's much faster.
Okay.
It's more flexible, and it's better at handling all the complexities of modern group accounting.
So it's like trading in your old reliable car for a brand new sports car.
Yeah.
You get more speed and power, but you also need to learn how to drive it.
Exactly. Group reporting is powerful.
Yeah.
But you need expertise to implement it.
Makes sense.
And you got to plan carefully.
For sure.
It's not something you want to rush into.
So as we wrap up part 2, I think it's safe to say this whole BPC sunset.
Yeah.
It's definitely a challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity.
Totally.
It's a time for companies to really rethink how they do things and optimize all of their financial processes.
Absolutely.
Well said. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back for part 3, we'll distill everything we've learned into some actionable advice.
Awesome.
For our listeners out there. Hashtag TTS. The Deep Dive episode 2024-11-23. Part 3 of 3. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've spent the last 2 parts really digging into this SAP BPC sunset.
Yeah.
We talked about all the challenges companies are facing.
For sure.
Potential pitfalls.
Right.
And all the exciting possibilities of these new technologies. But now let's focus on what our listeners can actually do. What are the key takeaways here? What are the actionable steps?
So the first takeaway is that this is happening. Like, BPC sunset is real.
It's real.
There's no escaping it.
Right.
You can't just ignore it and hope it goes away.
Right. Burying your head in the sand is not going to work.
Exactly. Companies need to acknowledge it and start planning.
So if step one is acknowledging that this is happening,
Yeah.
what's step two?
Step 2 is to understand the options.
Okay.
We've talked about SAC, group reporting, IBP, the hybrid model.
Right.
They all have their own strengths and weaknesses.
Yep.
There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
So it's about finding the right fit for each company.
Exactly. You need to look at your needs, your budget,
Mhm.
your technical capabilities,
Right.
and then decide what's best.
Are there any resources out there to help companies with this?
Yeah, there are tons.
Okay.
SAP has roadmaps, white papers, webinars. They've got a network of partners and consultants.
Okay.
And it can be really helpful to talk to other companies who have already made this transition.
Right. Learn from their experience.
Exactly.
So it sounds like there's a lot of support out there.
Yeah, for sure.
But even with all that support,
Yeah.
it still feels like a really big task.
It is.
So where should a company even begin?
I would say start by taking a really good look at your current BPC environment.
Okay.
Document everything.
Okay.
Your processes, your customizations.
Gotcha.
Figure out what skills and resources you're going to need.
So it's kind of like taking inventory before you move.
Yes, exactly.
You got to figure out what you have,
Right.
what you need,
Yeah.
what you can get rid of.
And once you have that clear picture,
Mm-hmm.
you can start exploring your options and making a plan.
Okay.
And remember, this whole transition can take up to 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So you really got to start early.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. You got to pace yourself.
Right.
Stay organized.
Mm.
Be prepared for bumps along the way.
Those always come up.
They do. And I think it's important to remember that this is more than just a technical upgrade.
Okay.
It's a chance to really rethink your financial processes,
Yeah.
streamline everything,
Hmm.
enhance collaboration.
Across the whole organization.
Exactly. It's a chance to really improve things.
So it's not just about replacing a system.
Right.
It's about using this as a catalyst for positive change.
Yes. Exactly.
I love that. And I think that's a great note to end on,
Yeah.
the BPC sunset.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's an opportunity to innovate,
Right.
improve efficiency,
Mm-hmm.
and gain a competitive advantage.
For sure. With careful planning,
Yeah.
the right resources, and a positive attitude.
You cannot just survive this.
Yeah.
You can thrive.
I love that.
This has been a great deep dive
It has.
into the SAP BPC sunset.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to the deep dive.